Over 27,000 nuclear weapons are present in the world. The persistent threat of nuclear conflict and radioactive contamination is posed by thousands deployed on land, at sea, and in the air. Atoms are divided during an atomic explosion, which causes a chain reaction. This results in the release of enormous energy and the collision of particles with increasing numbers of atoms, which intensifies the chain reaction. Fission is the name of this procedure. Using unstable and radioactive enriched uranium and plutonium atoms produces the strongest fission explosion. Atomic bombs, commonly referred to as A-bombs or fission bombs, derive all of their explosive energy from nuclear fusion. Hydrogen bombs, sometimes referred to as H-bombs, thermonuclear bombs, or fusion bombs, are over 1,000 times more potent than fission bombs at producing energy through nuclear fusion reactions. They function similarly to the sun by compressing and heating fusion fuel with fission energy. In kilotons and megatons, which are equal to thousands of tons of TNT, nuclear explosion destructive power is measured, equivalent to millions of tons. Compared to conventional bombs, nuclear weapons are significantly more destructive. Their gigantic explosions kill without discrimination, and the radioactive fallout from them can continue to do so for years to come. 13 square kilometers of the Japanese city of Hiroshima were destroyed by the 15-kiloton bomb that was unleashed on it in 1945. Several million degrees Celsius were achieved at the explosion center. 92% of the city's structures were destroyed or damaged, and everyone within half a mile of the blast's epicenter died. Approximately 75,000 people died right away, but many more perished from radiation sickness. The number of fatalities reached 200,000 by 1950's end. 3 days later, 40,000 people were killed by the Nagasaki bomb, and by 1950, 140,000 had perished. Even now, more infants are still born there malformed or dead. Nuclear weapons now are significantly more potent than those used to attack Japan. The combined populations of Britain, Canada, Australia, Aotearoa/NZ, and Germany, totaling 200 million people, might all be killed by just 50. At least 2,053 nuclear test explosions have taken place underground, in the ocean, and in the atmosphere. The explosion output of the bombs, which was equal to 40,000 Hiroshima bombs, produced radioactive contamination that was 50 times greater than that of the Chernobyl nuclear accident in 1986. About 1.5 million individuals will eventually pass away due to exposure to the radiation brought on the air experiments. The Soviet Union's Tsar Bomba, which was tested in 1961 and had an explosive yield of 50 megatons, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima had a mere 15 kilotons, was the greatest nuclear weapon ever. 9 nations possess nuclear weapons, while 35 to 40 others are thought to be capable of doing so. In addition to the 9 nuclear-armed nations, there are 26 umbrella states that have consented to a security guarantee under the U.S. nuclear umbrella and provide support for the nuclear war machine. As part of their NATO membership, some 100 U.S. nukes are located on the soil of Belgium, Germany, Holland, Italy, and Turkey. 24 nations have uranium mines that provide the fissile components needed to create bombs. The largest are in South Africa, the United States, Namibia, Australia, Canada, and Australia. The phase of making nuclear weapons that has the greatest environmental impact is uranium mining. Lung cancer rates among uranium miners are higher, and waste from the mines retains 85% of the radioactivity of the initial ore. South Africa surreptitiously built a small number of nuclear bombs during the apartheid era, which it later destroyed. Following the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Ukraine received nuclear weapons, but they gave them back to Russia. The nuclear weapons programs of Taiwan, South Korea, Argentina, Brazil, and Libya have been suspended. Prior to the Gulf War in 1991, Iraq had an operational program, but was compelled to dismantle it under UN supervision. Who is nuclear free? A nuclear weapon-free zone, NWFZ, is an area where nations agree not to produce, obtain, test, or own nuclear weapons. The bomb was abandoned in Southeast Asia in 1995, the South Pacific in 1985, and Latin America in 1967. The 1996 Treaty of Pelindaba was intended to ban nuclear weapons on the African continent, however it has not yet come into effect. Neither has the Central Asian Zone Treaty, which 5 former Soviet Union nations signed in 2006. 440 nuclear power reactors are producing electricity in 31 different nations. Countries with civil nuclear programs have the technological know-how and capacity to generate plutonium with a high enough purity for use in weapons. Iran is working on a uranium enrichment program that could eventually lead to the production of nuclear weapons. In the 21st century, nuclear weapons account for about $40 billion annually, or 10% of the U.S. military budget. This is nearly the same cost as universal access to basic education, healthcare, adequate food, clean water, and safe sewage for the world's population. The highly classified Manhattan Project, which the U.S. used to create the first nuclear bombs in 1945, cost $20 billion, or roughly 7% of the total cost of the war. Between the early 1940s and 1996, U.S. spending on nuclear weapons totaled $5.8 trillion. The UK's nuclear weapons system, Trident, has an annual operating cost of up to $4 billion and replacement plans are estimated to cost $154 billion. The economical cost of a bomb. A typical nuclear bomb produces 50 cubic meters of low-level trash in addition to 2,000 tons of low-level waste from uranium mining and 4 tons of depleted uranium. Through the year 2070, the cost of cleanup after nuclear weapon manufacture and testing in the U.S. will exceed $300 billion. Scientists from other nations conducted tests related to nuclear reactors and fission weapons during World War II, but only the United States took its efforts as far as isolating uranium-235 or producing plutonium-239. By the time the war broke out on September 1, 1939, Germany had established a special office for the military use of nuclear fusion, where experiments involving chain reactions involving uranium and graphite were being planned and strategies for isotope separation of uranium were being researched. Werner Heisenberg suggested using heavy water as the moderator after several measurements on graphite were found to be inaccurate. The German attempts were never successful in large part due to their reliance on scarce heavy water. The isotope separation research were focused on low enrichments, about 1% uranium-235, for the chain reaction tests. However, they were never developed past the stage of laboratory equipment, and multiple times these prototypes were obliterated in bombing raids. As for the fission bomb itself, it was still a long way off and almost little research beyond back-of-the-envelope studies had been done. Japanese scientists started work on an atomic bomb, just like their counterparts elsewhere. Nishina Yoshio, the top nuclear scientist in Japan, started a small-scale research project with help from the military forces in December 1940. Due to a lack of government funding, resources, and uranium, it was never taken outside of the lab. How can we help? Making sure that decision-makers are aware that nuclear weapons have no place in the world we desire for ourselves and for future generations is our shared responsibility. Only people like you have the power to change things. Putting the problem of nuclear weapons on the agenda of the civic, religious, social, and other organizations you are a part of will help you spread awareness of what is at stake. Writing letters to the neighborhood media to express their worries. Depending on where you live, you can call on political leaders and those who have the ability to sway them to keep long-standing pledges to reduce and eventually eliminate nuclear weapons. Participate in the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons and work quickly to eliminate the threat of nuclear use. Atomic bomb, thermonuclear weapon, or nuclear weapon bomb or other weapon fired from an airplane, missile, or other device that obtains its power from nuclear fusion, nuclear fission, or both. Nuclear weapons, often called hydrogen bombs or thermonuclear bombs, release energy by fusing the nuclei of the hydrogen isotopes tritium or deuterium. Fission weapons, also known as atomic bombs, release energy by breaking the nuclei of uranium or plutonium atoms. Actually, most nuclear weapons combine the two techniques. The most lethal explosives ever created are nuclear bombs. Along with a blast equivalent to thousands of tons of TNT, their catastrophic consequences also include blinding light, scorching heat, and deadly radioactive fallout. In 1966, the United States nuclear arsenal peaked at about 32,000 warheads, whereas the Soviet Union's peaked at about 33,000 in 1988. Both nations have deactivated or disassembled thousands of weapons since the end of the Cold War. The United Kingdom, France, China, India, Pakistan, and North Korea are more countries with nuclear weapons. It is widely believed that Israel has nuclear weapons. Some nations, including South Africa, Brazil, Argentina, and Iraq, have admitted to once having nuclear weapons programs, but later ending them. That was for today. Thank you for staying with us. Don't forget to like our video and subscribe to our channel.